Boom, 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 boom. What up? Welcome to PanNerdia, and welcome to another Sharp Sundays. PanNerdia's Sharp Object Review Show. Now, last week, we went ahead and reviewed not only episode 1 and 2, but we also kind of predicted what we thought was going to happen tonight. Previewed, you know. So welcome back. I'm AA Ron, part of PanNerdia, and I'm excited here to talk about Fix, episode 3 of Sharp Objects. Now, before we get started, just a little reminder: this is actually a show, a miniseries on HBO, based on a novel of the same name. So I'm sure there's uncanny similarities to the novel, but I have not looked ahead of the novel. I have not read the novel, so I don't know what's going to happen. Though this review of the miniseries on HBO will contain spoilers, I myself personally will not look ahead through the novel and be surprised each week, just like you guys. So tonight's episode is going to be episode 4, Ripe, which we will get to here in a little bit towards the end of this review, but right now we're talking about episode 3, so let's get to it. All right, let me get over here real quick. All right, so right to it. The episode starts off with the local kids out hooting and hollering, out late past curfew in Wind Gap. Now, at this point, Natalie Keene has been found dead. She actually appeared in broad daylight. So there's an even more harsh curfew on the kids at this point. They found the dead body. The funeral's happened. It's still a mystery, and they're still trying to solve it. So kids are out. Chief Bill Vickery stops by and decides, to call them out, point them out. Obviously, there's a little scene here between the older Keene brother, John Keene, and his girlfriend. They're sitting out there as well amongst all the kids as the boys are chasing the pigs and stuff. And Emma, Camille's sister, you start seeing a little more of her kind of wild side, and she's wasted and, calls out to John, stirs some shit up, particularly about, catching the pig. Think of it as like a little girl, because John is he's being accused. He's kind of a suspect. That's the word I was looking for. So people are definitely joking around, particularly Emma, of course. So, it shows Camille back at the Krellin household, the Krellin compound, I should say. And while she's working on her next article, she hears a noise outside, and it is Emma crashing into Mama's rose bushes, Adore's rose bushes, with a golf cart. Camille helps her inside, and they kind of have this moment to where Camille's kind of really seeing the true Emma. Now, of course, she's wasted, but you know what they say about booze and what it can do. So a little more is leaked out in terms of Emma's character and how she kind of thinks. She's the typical kind of, popular girl of the town, of this small town that nothing much goes on. So she's kind of like the queen, the queen of mean in that instance. Reminds me of like Mean Girls. It really does in that terms. Not like as comical, but in terms of just how she's almost over the top in terms of her viperness. So they kind of talk, and then she at the end of it, she kind of is like, "Oh, my long lost sister! I just can't believe I have a sister now." And it starts sparking this thought in Camille, this memory. And it starts off with her thinking of this memory with it raining out, and she's in this car, her car, outside of a hospital, and pulls down her sleeve, right? Well, she, of course, is going to check herself in. Now, we know that she's kind of kooky, right, in that terms. but we don't know if she's ever been kind of like admitted into a psych ward or anything along those lines yet. She actually definitely has these problems, but it hasn't ever been really shown to us. This case, she's not getting forced in; she's admitting herself. Yeah, she does cut herself before she goes in to kind of show, like, yeah, but it's almost like she's been here before, right? She's done this before. And you'll start recognizing things right off the bat, like this little cart of cleaning supplies that was flashed through Camille's memories in the first episode. I think as in the second episode as well, but I definitely remember the first episode. They show these flashbacks. Drano and other cleaning chemicals. And then she looks over, she hears this noise, this music playing, Led Zeppelin in particular. She looks over and she sees Allison. Well, she hasn't met her yet, but sees her. She's rocking out, enjoying herself as much as she can, being at a ward like that. But what's really comical is she walks in, Camille walks into the room she's staying in, and the receptionist or the nurse, she puts them together, thinking, you know what, maybe they'll kind of be able to help each other out, kind of keep each other out of that bad head space. And as soon as Camille walks in, she's ready to say something, and Allison's like, no. And then Camille's like, all right, lifts up her shirt and shows her one of her scars. This scar in particular says, fuck you. So, yeah, pretty funny there. So we're sent back to this scene, this cool kind of juxtaposed scene where Detective Willis is already kind of in his car at this moment, but he's having what it is a flashback of talking to Bill Vickery just moments before. He's getting in the car just after he leaves the police station, but then he goes back to the scene of the crime, or at least not the crime, but where the body was found, and it's him looking for more evidence, but thinking back on when he was talking to Bill, and Bill's again just kind of dishing out some bullshit, which is this passive aggressive shit, but his is more straightforward since he's the chief, but he's still kind of diverting the obvious. He's saying, oh, it's Mexicans or it's out-of-towners who must have did it. And, Detective Willis, being who he is and what he knows, is like, look, it's not somebody out of town. This is something that was premeditative. It's got to be somebody who's close or knows these girls. This is a serial. It's more than just, a quick kill to get the rocks off, right? And, of course, Vickery's like, well, that would be nice for you getting a serial. Big boy detective getting a serial case, blah, blah, blah. So there's always, they're butting heads. They're not getting too far in terms of finding who's who. And I think Vickery really doesn't want to work with them mainly. And that's kind of apparent. We go back to a scene. Camille's in her car and she's listening to music. Now, music's a big key to this episode here. The music that she's been listening to from that one cracked screen iPod. But a scene where the ladies are getting ready. Visitors are coming to the ward today. And Allison's in there trying to put on some lipstick. And Camille goes in to help, kind of showing her, like, showing that perhaps Camille, well, okay, it shows her roots at least in terms of how she was raised. Perhaps Allison wasn't as so, but it seemed like when her mom is visiting later in the episode that she comes from some money too. So, but they have a scene of bonding where, Allison kind of shows her scars off, saying, I have to wear long skirts now. Camille, of course, says, I haven't been able to wear skirts since college. So, kind of give us some insight in terms of when Camille perhaps started cutting herself. We still have that flashback back in episode 1 as well, where Camille sees herself running as a high schooler, particularly a cheerleader, away from a bunch of boys. So something happens between then and college to where she starts cutting herself, so much so that she can't even wear a skirt. So it's pretty crazy. But at this point, they're kind of getting to know each other more. I think this is more of a flashback at this point when she gets introduced to the music from the point of when she shows her scars, because that dress and that whole scene, that day of the parents visiting, is a big day in terms of this episode. But they bond, and then they're kind of talking. Allison's like, what do you listen to? And Camille's like, I don't really listen to much. It's not really my thing. And she introduces her to the music Camille's sitting there remembering it. And it's a really beautiful moment, man. And it has the Led Zeppelin song playing, and it's like, it really makes you think of that bond with a friend, or that moment where somebody kind of like shows you the way to let go and get away from your own thoughts even. And it's really cool, and it's a beautiful moment, especially if you can kind of relate to it to a degree, you know. But of course, her great memories interrupted by Chief Bill Vickery pulling up. And, you know, if you've seen the preview of this show, the whole Chief is doing his thing. He's like, look, I don't want you here. Your stories are riling everybody up. Because she's released her story at this point. But not a full story. It's not the story that Frank Curry wants all the way. So he still wants her to do some more digging. But it's kind of a, like, scratching the surface story, right? Pardon me. Vickery pulls up. You're riling everybody up with that, with your stories there. And her famous quote, "You got 2 dead girls in your hands, Chief. Looks like somebody else is doing the riling." And he pulls off. Great stuff. She, of course, gets out of her car then and goes into Bob Nash's house. The father of Ann Nash, the first girl that went missing and was found strangled. Also missing her teeth, too, so that's a key point there. But she enters the house and begins kind of a second interview with Bob, kind of a deeper one. Of course, how he's kind of lashing out as in terms of, they think I'm a suspect as well, just because I, had too much to drink here and there, and this and that. I got in a fight. So he's kind of like the town drunk. He gets a little angry. Maybe he lashes out when he gets drunk. And so that's where he's kind of a suspect and thrown into that as well. But amongst her interview, her second kind of interview with Bob, Adora comes in kind of abruptly, and you're like, okay. Because in the second episode, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it was the first, Bob Nash had called Adora. Now, I didn't show it on screen, but Adora had mentioned, Bob Nash called me and said that you went to his house and harassed him today, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure he didn't say harass, but this is how she's staking it out. Camille then finds out that Adora did indeed know Ann Nash. Adora was her tutor. So they were close indeed. And though Camille may or may not have believed it when her mom first said, I knew these girls, she thought she was just kind of speaking out of her ass, but she really did. At least she knew Ann. So we haven't gotten as far as Natalie Keene, but in terms of Ann Nash, she knew her. So she, of course, is like, you got to go. And Camille's like, I'm not done. And her mom's like, yes, you are. And she's like, motherfucker. So she leaves all pissed. Great scene of, Amy Adams, great actress, getting all angry and kind of like, reminds me of me and Rush Hour sometimes. But she pulls away, and as she's leaving, she spots her sister, Emma, kind of skating away. It's like, oh, where's that little bitch going? And she gets after it and essentially follows her, trails her behind just far enough so Emma can't see. Emma rollerblades all the way down to, well, an entrance to Preaker Farms. Perhaps it'll give us some more insight on Camille's father, huh? So we still don't know about her father yet. Emma and Marion both being from Allen. So she gets onto a golf cart and goes into the farms, pig farm to be exact. Camille still follows her, eventually on foot, through all these corridors until she spots her in this one, pigsty, to where it's a bunch of these little baby pigs suckling, and a guy enters, a worker of the farm, and gives her a little more, mature pig. He's still a younger one to hold, like she's taking care of it like a baby. It's an interesting scene. It's somewhat of a callback to when earlier in the episode when Emma was drunk and Camille and them were interacting. Emma asked Camille, like, do you have a boyfriend? Do you want one? I mean, don't you want to have a baby? And Camille's like, I wouldn't know what to do with that. So it's maybe showing some more of an innocent side to Emma, or it's a diversion. But either way, after she receives the pig and walks out, she closes the door as Camille's peeking in, and Emma makes eye contact with her. So it's kind of like, all right, so did she know I was following her or what? So we get a flashback to, not a flashback, we shoot back across town over to the Krellin Ranch, and we get an interesting interaction with Chief Bill Vickery. He's at the Krellins and is in the kitchen with Adora. Now he's getting some coffee, and he's kind of talking with Adora, and Adora kind of seems a little more sensual, a little more seductress in this scene as she kind of approaches Bill, and they kind of discuss some things, and she mentioned something about her daughter, and he's like, well, which one are you talking about? And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, or she goes, sorry about my daughter, talking about Camille, and he's like, well, I caught Emma out after curfew. Well, she tries to call her out, but there's an interesting scene here to where while she's waiting for Emma to come down, she's talking to Bill, and they're kind of figuring some stuff out, and he's like, yeah, well, the detective thinks it's somebody, one of ours, and she's like, well, you don't, do you? And then they have this intimate moment. It's kind of eerie in a way, but it kind of shows, well, perhaps there's something more between these two, all right? And don't let me forget to mention that in the past week, I've had some thoughts, particularly about Adora and her involvement in these murders. The first scene we ever see her in is in the very first scene of the show, when it's like that weird kind of memory flip where it's young Camille and her sister running up into the house. Adora's in the background, and what is she wearing? Well, a white dress, eerie in the background. I'll leave you with that. So Chief leaves after Emma comes in. In particular, Adora tells Emma, stay away from Camille. She's dangerous. Do you understand me? Dangerous. Comes back to Camille. She, early in the episode, tried to get an interview with John Keene, Natalie Keene's mother, but couldn't. So John Keene's girlfriend set up an interview for them later. So she came over to, and it's missing my head right now, but John's girlfriend's house, and John's staying with her. They're living in the back pool house, and she interviews him, and already off the bat, it's kind of weird. Like, his girlfriend's already kind of speaking for him, especially about his sister, Natalie, and as it kind of slowly goes and goes, you can see Camille kind of trying to rile him up, of course, but John kind of gets emotional, and then is like, you know what? I fucking hate this place. It's this town's fault. This is why I don't want to be here. This is why my sister got kidnapped, was being here, you know? It's like, so already, you know, his girlfriend's getting a little antsy, and so it kind of breaks up that scene, but it kind of shows us as the audience as well as Camille that, you know what, it's most likely not him. He had a close relation with his sister, but he was from a place, I'm pretty sure they said New Jersey in the second episode, where there's people all the time. So he comes to this small town. It's going to be a little different for him, and like a little different for him to adjust. So he's kind of checked off the radar. Before Camille heads home, though, she stops and into a diner and talks to Detective Willis. He's kind of being off-puttish, but Camille essentially tries to tell him, you know, look, John's not really a suspect, but just kind of putting that out there. She eventually gets home. Door's out, fixing the rose bushes that Emma crashed into. Now, whether or not Adora knows Emma did it or still is up in the air. I think Adora is smarter than we think, and she knows what Emma's doing, but she chooses to ignore it. Maybe pluck a few eyelashes out in the process, right? But there's an important scene here to where Adora still kind of pushes Camille to the side, just brushes her off, saying, nothing's ever your fault, is it? So again, it just shows the separation. And I wonder where it ultimately stems from. Is it because of Camille's father? Is that going to be the tying point there? Well, Camille then thinks of back to the day her mom came to visit. Well, the rose bushes is what is kind of reminding her of this. Particularly on the day they came to visit, Camille was standing at the door waiting for them to come, and she looks down the hallway and sees them approach. Adora wearing a bright white, beautiful dress, and Alan also wearing a white suit. They come in, Adora carrying the red roses. I'm assuming, because it's down the hallway, you don't hear what she says, but she's told by the nurse, yes, your daughter is here for self-harm, and it must just strike her as no, not her, and she throws the bouquet of roses down. It's an intense scene where she storms out. Alan picks him up. The nurse helps trim him. Alan brings them down. It doesn't show their interaction. It just shows her grab the roses, turn around, and look at Allison with her mother and trying to give her like a little nod. But Allison didn't really know, like, you know, she's got it going on with her family. How does she figure it out? Well, I guess something happened bad with Allison, because later she's crying in bed and asks Camille, is it going to get better with my family, later, like when I'm your age? And Camille's like, no, it's not. She's like, well, what do you do? And Camille's like, you just survive. And I guess Allison didn't really want to hear that now, did she? She turns around, but Camille says, I got something for you. She goes and gets the headphones. The headphones that you got to ask the receptionist or the nurse for, because she has it at her desk. Kind of have to beg her. But they get the music and they get out of there for a little bit, While Camille's doing some more work, we're very weird, eerie scene here, all right? Emma comes in and is kind of like, hey, I'm going out. But not before she asks about Camille's interview with John, saying, well, John really wants me. He doesn't want to be with his girlfriend. And then she's like, well, I'm going out. And Camille's, of course, like, you're not doing that. I mean, you fucking blasted into the rose bushes. And plus, it's after curfew, and I'm not going to keep covering for you. Essentially is what she got after. Well, see some tension there. And Camille's like, you promise? Kind of grabs her by the wrist. And Emma's like, I promise. And she grabs Camille by the wrist. And I swear she had touched a little bit of some scars or something, right? Because then she's like, are you dangerous? Mama said I need to stay away from you, or something along those lines, right? Real eerie music playing in the background. I just love how they do that. They really set up the scenes, right? So she's like, okay, well, good night. And this makes Camille think about some things again. Some more of the rose bushes. She keeps kind of looking at the corner of her toilet in the bathroom. And it makes her flash back to a scene where she sees the toilet. Remember in the first episode, she kept looking at the toilet and the cleaning supplies? All these things rushing in. She's like, I gotta get the F out of here. So she leaves. She stops into Marion's room once again, kind of looks around, picks up a picture, and while she's looking at it in the reflection, she sees the dead body. Well, she sees the dead body of not Marion. It seems to be Allison's dead body. Huh. Well, she gets out of there and she goes to the bar. Who's there but Detective Willis? So they meet again. She kind of makes it up to him by getting him a shot. They try to get some more answers. And ultimately, closing time. And essentially, they get out of there. They continue to drink over in the old party spot. Doing some small talk, basically kind of flirting. I'm curious to see where this goes, considering, like, Camille with the scars, like, is she willing to expose that? But I don't think she's not giving it up that easy. She's too much of a baller. She's playing Detective Willis, right? So as they're there, then we hear some more hooting and hollering from the kids as they scoot around the corner. And who else is it but Emma and her little roller skate gang and her dudes. She pulls up. She's wasted, obviously. Calling Richard Willis Dick, by the way. Hey, I mean, it is his name. Doing some, real immature stuff. Being like, oh, you dating now, blah, blah, blah. Already kind of annoying Camille, you can see. Showing Emma's true colors. And they're both kind of over it at this point. Emma then, as they're walking, Camille and Willis are walking away. Emma comes up and puts her sucker in Camille's beautiful hair. And so, you know, she kind of stops her, and Emma's like, "What, you're gonna hurt me? You know, you can kill me right here." And Detective Dick wouldn't still know who did it. And so it's really just showing how, like, crude and rude Emma can be, her true self, right? Especially to her sister? Question mark. So it's what this show's already doing is it's putting up more suspects in the viewer's eye than what's obvious on screen. Shit, Emma and her friends could have been the ones who killed the girls. I mean, she said earlier in the episode when she was drunk with Camille that her friends will do anything for her. That could be too obvious, but hey man, this town's a little kooky. Okay, before I get to that scene. So Camille's obviously very pissed and is like, "Well, I'm just going to walk to my car. It's fine, Richard." So she walks past him. She gets out of that situation. She gets in her car, and driving away, she becomes very emotional. She gets very angry. She gets back on the main road leading out of town and starts picking up speed and picking up speed and picking up speed. And this beautiful music starts playing, right? Now, a little setup here, too. While this scene's happening, before they went out to the bar, Alan had tried helping Adora clean her hand because she had cut her hand during the whole rose scene with Camille. And you get a little insight on their relationship, too, to where Alan is like, "Perhaps I should stay with you tonight." And she's like, "I don't think that'll be necessary." So they don't obviously sleep in the same room. So it kind of makes you think, why he has been real quiet this whole show so far. He goes downstairs, presumably around the same time Camille is rushing down the highway at angry speeds to listen to some music to get back in his mindset. And that's kind of the music that plays, is classical music. And so as she's thinking and she's picking up speed, she's thinking back to not only her sister being mean to her, being a little bitch, but she thinks back to the night of her parents visiting. She goes to give the iPod back to the nurse, and when they come back into the room, they find Allison dead on the floor. And why is those chemicals shown so much? Well, it's because Allison died killing herself drinking Drano, which is so horrible. And I've heard of that stuff before in real life. It's horrible. But I guess she just couldn't survive. That's not what she needed to hear, and it didn't help Camille either. And she couldn't believe it, right? The scene, and it's flashing back, and she's getting faster and faster in her car, and she can't fathom this, and it's reminding her of how she tries to help others, and especially younger ones, like little sisters who are troubled, and she tries to bring them back and help them survive, but she takes in the pain, right? And she keeps going, it's getting intense and fast. And while in that time frame, as she sees Allison down on the floor, she rushes to the bathroom because it makes her sick. I mean, it's gross. And she runs into the bathroom. She begins to throw up. And as she's leaning down, she looks over to the toilet that we've been seeing this whole time. This toilet that she's been having these flashbacks to. And she sees this screw sticking out, the one that holds the lid in. And she unscrews it super quick and violently. And she begins cutting herself on her wrist, a way to release. It's so intense, the moment. And she's carving something in her arm deep. It's ridiculous. She's almost hitting 100 now, thinking about this, going straight down the highway, just ripping. And at the same time, it's flashing back to Alan, getting up and putting his music down, frustrated, and walking outside. It goes back to Camille thinking about getting pulled out by, the other nurses there, yanking her out of the room to get away from Allison and not cut herself, and she's crying and struggling, and it flashes back to Alan. He gets on the porch and he takes his fist and he bites it. It's like he's about to turn to a Titan, right? Attack on Titan. And it shows more to him like perhaps he hurts himself doing some crazy shit. He can't keep his sanity in, right? And it flashes back as she sees 90 miles of St. Louis, but somebody's in the middle of the road. She pulls on her brakes. They're gone. She looks in the rearview mirror. She sees another ghost. It's gone. And before I end the review of episode 3, I gotta talk about these ghosts. the ghosts she's been seeing have not only been Marion, but the one in episode 2 she sees hanging on the door in the funeral dress. It wasn't Marion. It was my mistake. I mentioned that. But I didn't know. It flashed forward. It was Allison. She sees Allison's ghost too. Same with the ghost that was on the train in the town center of One Gap. The caboose. Well, what was Camille trying to do with Allison? With her younger sister Marion, especially when Marion was talking about giving up. She tried fixing them. And that's what she carved into her arm that night. Fix. And as the episode ends, she stops, puts her head on the steering wheel, her hands up. Camera shows right here in her forearm. Fix. And that's how the episode ends. Woo! Boy, what an episode. Crazy, crazy episode. I loved it. It was amazing. It showed us more insight into not only her flashbacks, but also why she's almost stuck. It's like an addiction to help younger ones, like ones she sees as like a sister. She has that connection, right, with ones who look up to her because she doesn't think too much of herself, right? She's as cool as others think she is. She's very humble, Camille. But when she sees struggle, she wants to help it. At least that's what I'm getting. And it gets ripped away from her. I feel like her need to help struggle is because she never got the help she needed when she was struggling from the one she needed from the most, her mother. It's a beautiful show. And I'm excited for tonight's episode, Ripe, episode 4. There's only 8 episodes of this miniseries, right? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and preview tonight's episode, Ripe, episode 4, on HBO. What?
I'm meeting today with the reporter.
I love this music too, right? So the thinking back, sorry if I skipped a little bit there.
You were always so willful, never sweet.
And again, it's kind of showing more that long-haired Camille. I'm assuming from high school. Oh, there they are, the high school boys.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
And it goes back to showing that cabin that was in the first episode. The one, she found the skin squirrels, the porn hanging everywhere.
Dangerous. Young one's in danger.
Well, then Bill says, we gotta talk about your daughters. One's dangerous and one's in danger. And it shows that last scene there with Emma getting pulled up on with the car really quick. So she's a little scared. So I'm curious where this episode's going to go. I'm saying that, yes, there's going to be more relationship connection with Richard Willis and Camille. Will there be a reveal of Camille's scars to Richard this episode? I could see that. I could see tonight's episode being the reveal, at least to Richard Willis, about Camille's scars. That's going to create a rift for a minute, I think, for a few episodes at least, if he finds out now, to the point where, they'll be more of a team, if you want to call it that, towards the end of this little miniseries, but it'll take a few episodes for them to kind of come back together, because he'll probably be freaked out. Might even think she's a suspect if he does, in fact, end up seeing her scars tonight. That's kind of my prediction, at least. As far as that goes, it did show some more scenes between Adora and Bill, so I'm curious if there's more insight onto that relationship. Perhaps if Adora is sleeping with Bill or something along those lines. Perhaps if Adora is the one who actually did murder the girls, Bill knows about it and is helping. Same with Alan, and maybe that's why he bit his hand out of anger. So a lot could be happening here, and I can keep predicting, but that could get towards the end of the book. So let's just do episode at a time. On episode Ripe, what does ripe mean, right? Ripe can mean like it's ready. It's too ripe, and it could be meant for a word like vile. It's ripe. it's starting to smell or stink. You know, it's been here a while. It's ready to go. And so, is that saying that whoever's done this has been thinking about it for a while? Is the thought of murder in somebody's particular mind going to show this episode, and it's going to kind of be ripened to the surface? I'm curious. Or is it just another word that Camille uses? I'm thinking it might be that. Another short, to the point word. Either way, we'll see on tonight's episode over on HBO of Sharp Objects, episode 4, Ripe. Thanks for joining me, guys, here on PanNerdia. I'm AA Ron. I'll be back next week to review episode 4 and talk about episode 5 and what we think is going to happen. If you guys check me here in about 20-30 minutes over on twitch.tv/PanNerdia, I might be setting up something a little special, some sort of a watch party for tonight's episode. So if you guys want to kick back, relax, and enjoy the show with me, jump over to twitch.tv/PanNerdia, and you can join me as we're chilling and watching the show. Just like we would be chilling together watching the show. Works better if you have the show with you. We can kind of start at the same time. Anyways, thanks guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week for the next review. Peace.